our attention, of course, to the NPL. It's really flying, and big news with the NPL. The window opens tomorrow, so clubs are been rushing, signing players. For the last 10 games of the season. That's all there is, 10 games to go. We know the Premier League has a top 6 playoff. The NPL 1 will have the promotion relegation game. So a lot of coaches, I can tell you, Andy, have been making phone calls, working overtime all night, a bit like the EPL transfer window, because it opens up tomorrow. And a lot of clubs, that's what they rely on, the players they can bring in. Some needed to save relegation, some needed to help promotion, some help to make the top 6 playoffs. So it's all been happening. But what we'll do, as we always do, first we'll go through all the Premier League and NPL 1 results with Andy, and then we'll go through some of the games and what's been happening.
Yeah, you might have to just make sure my app is up to date, mate, as opposed to last week. But I'll go through the results that I do have from the weekend NPL results. There are Central Coast Mariners 3, Sydney United 1, Blacktown City 3, St George City 1, Wollongong Wolves 1, Rockdale Keep on Keeping on 3, Northwest Spirit 1, Western Sydney Wanderers 0. Mount Druitt had a win 1-0 against Manly United. The big one of the weekend, Chubb, was Sydney Olympic. Your boys 2-0 against Marconi Stallions. St George and Sutherland Sharks drew 1-1. And Apia, a massive 6-2 win away from home against Sydney Sydney FC.
Yeah, while you're there, before we go in the games, might as well go through the results of the NPL 1 as well, and then we can go through some games for both leagues.
No worries, I'm just bringing the NPL 1 results up here. Hakawa Sydney 4, University of New South Wales 3, Bankstown City 0, Northern Tigers 1, Macarthur Eames 2, Bonnyrigg White Eagles 0, Interlions 3, Bulls Academy 1, Mounties and Rydermere drew 2-2. Newcastle Jets down your Dulwich Hill 3-0. SD Raiders, another loss for SD Raiders, this time away at home to Hills United.
Yeah, so some big results there. We'll go through the NPL 1 shortly, but we'll go back to the New South Wales Premier League. As we know, it's really heating up. I mean, interesting there, Patrick Weinscheid of Manly United was released last week as well from Manly United. As we know, my mail is you could be seeing him at Hills United and next year with Gary Van Egmond tipped to be taking maybe a coaching role at Western Sydney Wanderers.
Gary did say last week he had a relationship with Patrick, didn't he?
Yeah, so don't be surprised if you see Patrick Van Zyde at Hills United next season and Gary Van Egmond moving to Western Sydney Wanderers. Getting, that could be on the cards. But Mount Druitt, big result for Mount Druitt, winning 1-0. And we'll look at the bottom team, Central Coast. We spoke about it last weekend, that Central Coast really need to start bringing those A-League players back. Sydney United were the form team of the competition, 5 unbeaten. And that will be a huge loss there for Sydney United. I know they went late down to 10 men, but going down 3-1, it's a game they would have been penciling in for 3 points. So that would be a huge loss there for them.
Oh, unbelievable loss, that one. That was one of the ones, along with, as I mentioned, Sydney Olympic and Marconi. That was, the two.
Yeah, we'll get to those, yeah.
Big results of the weekend. But, look, Sydney United would be, absolutely kicking themselves. They were, travelling quite well there. And against a team, as you know, Chubbs, it's, not travelling too well.
Rose scoring there. Rose is a good player for the Mariners, so I see him on the score sheet there. So, yeah, definitely a huge loss there for Sydney United.
Only 17 years old, I think, 17 or 18 years old.
Correct. Very good player. But we'll leave before we go to the Olympic game. Spirit had a good win. Again, the Western Sydney Wanderers youth, I mean, they're dropping down into that little bit of the relegation zone. Again, they'll be really worried, the Wanderers. That's a huge win for Spirit. They're really confident of cracking that top 2. They're staying at the pace. They're only 3 points away from that top 2, and a good win, 1-0 win, half-4 win against Western Sydney Wanderers, who, like I said, are really struggling in 14th position at the moment.
And it just keeps Spirit in touch with that top 2 with Rockdale and Marconi. Rockdale's now got a 3-point gap on Marconi, which is quite phenomenal considering how far ahead. I think Marconi were 5 points clear at one stage. But Rockdale, so it keeps Spirit, in touching distance of those top 2 teams. Have you heard anything on? Is there any rumours in terms of club potential signings, Chubbs, or does that sort of
Well,
really
there's a
happen?
lot of next week, but you hear a lot of things say, unless it's concrete, it's hard just to
Have you,
say.
have
Like,
you guys been have you guys been tapped up for any of your boys or not yet?
no, no. Well, we had one player that could have left, but he's staying. We've signing four players. Obviously, we're bringing four players, some from NPL lower league and one from the same league. Yeah, but I mean, it's a very hard, and it's hard bringing in players at this time of window. But unfortunately, you've got to do what you can because, like I said, with 10 games to go, everyone needs with 30 rounds. You're getting a lot of injuries, a lot of suspensions, a lot of players missing. So it does. You really need to bring in fresh and freshen up the squad for the last 10 rounds. Um,
Mentioned Mount Druitt, big win for them.
yeah, we mentioned Mount Druitt. I said it was a huge win for Manly. And Mount Druitt, they need to start getting those results if they're going to have any chance to stay out of that bottom two. Manly's really dropped off in the last few weeks, so huge result for Mount Druitt. Wollongong Wolves, Rockdale, like we said, Rockdale's just been on fire. They've just continued. They've continued their great run. And again, 2 weeks in a row. It's very rare, you know.
Yeah, big result, a double to Moody Najjar there. And yeah, look, they're just like I said, it's hard to see how it's hard to comprehend how they're 3 points out of Marconi, and that result against Marconi, obviously a couple of weeks back, was huge for them as well. But at one stage, yeah, Marconi was sort of high flying on their own up the top. But full credit to Rockdale, they've reined them in and they've taken over now. So yeah, it just gets juicier and juicier each week, Chubbs.
100%. Sydney Olympic 2, Marconi Stallions nil. We spoke about Olympic. Labi Khalidi was under a lot of pressure from fans, from social media, but he has started turning results around slowly. I mean, they're only 4 points out of the six and really making good headway. Huge win over Marconi, an own goal from Bernie Ruiz Diaz scoring the second.
Great goal, Ruiz Diaz.
Ruiz Diaz, great goal, but Olympic are starting to find form at the right time, and with 10 rounds to go, they could be a team that we probably weren't predicting not so long ago for this top six spot, but they could be the outside chance of getting in there.
Oh, for sure, and we spoke about it last week with Brano. They've put themselves in touching distance, and the way the results are going, on any given day with anyone beating anyone, they can really make a play. And Chubbs, you know more than anyone how much pressure is on that club for success, and especially on Labi Hilidi. So it's a huge result for them. Disappointing for Marconi, obviously my local club. Not the way they'd want to go out against a bit of rival over the years, and an NSL rival, if you like, in Sydney Olympic. But yeah, look, kudos to Sydney
It's funny,
Olympic.
Olympics had the wood over Marconi last year, beating them as well, and this year, yeah, it's been.
They just get up for that game, don't they?
Yeah, it's always a huge game. It's a huge game, and it was a big game back in the old NSL days, and it's a huge game now.
The pity it's, I don't know if you see, it's played out there at Jubilee Oval there at St George Dragons home ground, and it just doesn't really have the atmosphere. It's obviously you're really really far away from the action, but yeah, as opposed to the good old days back at Belmore, where they I think they still do play a handful of games there, but yeah, they're taking a few more games away to Jubilee Oval, which just doesn't really seem to have the atmosphere, unfortunately.
We had Franco Parisi last week on the show, spoke a lot about his players individually, how good they're going and everything. Well, they hit a very formed team as well that was in form. Sydney FC Youth for 6. And RPA now is the real movers. They're in third spot. Fourth spot. 4 points away from that top two as well. So that top two, is a real big ding dong battle now with Spirit and RPA really, really on Marconi's tails.
Yeah, he talked him up. Franco, and that's a huge win for them. And Sydney, it's interesting because Sydney FC we spoke about in recent weeks as well.
They were going really well, travelling really well in one of the form teams.
Well, yeah, we said as expected, a few of the A-League boys will be back in that NPL. In the NPL fold with Sydney FC, but that's an absolute hammering of the highest order. You got to say, it was 2-1 at half time. Chubbs that particular game, and RP just put the foot on the accelerator. Even with a man down, they managed to score 2 goals. They were down to 10 men in the 79th minute. At that stage, it was 4-1, but yeah, to score 2 more goals that and run out 6-2 winners is just absolutely massive for Apia.
Yeah, Mick D's saying Olympic 4 wins out of 5. He thinks, yeah, they're definitely, you're right, Mick D, they are definitely the form team, one of the form teams in the comp right now, so in the Olympic, really flying high. Blacktown City, important win for their top six hopes, like we said, with Olympic chasing and Sydney
Um,
United chasing. 3-1 win.
they're the ones kind of flying under the radar, Chubbs, Blacktown City. I know we had Andy on the other week,
Yeah,
and
I thought a couple of weeks ago they went good. Then they had a little bit of a drop off. Now they seem to have, they've had another good, important win.
yeah, sitting pretty in fifth spot, 36. They're 4 points. Well, sorry, they're 7 points clear of Sydney Olympic in seventh. So yeah, more
Yeah, they're
results.
4 points. They're 4 points ahead of Olympic.
Yeah,
Blacktown, yeah, they're 4 points ahead of Olympic and 3 points ahead of Sydney United.
yeah. So if anything goes their way, there they can be the dark horse. That's for sure.
100%. Another game there will look well, Sutherland Sharks and St George, both teams needing points. It was a game that they would probably cancel each other out in a draw. Sutherland Sutherland started the season on fire, 3 wins in a row. I spoke to Steve Zoricic, their coach. Hopefully we have him on next week as well. He wanted to come on this week, but unfortunately they got training today. But they're a club who could be in a little bit of bother. They're 4 points away from that second last spot where you go into a playoff game with an NPL 1 club. But they're going to start having to pick up points, and they'll be a little bit disappointed they couldn't get all 3 points there. One or maybe 1 point's not enough at this time of season.
Yeah, Chubbs, I mean, I'm sort of more involved in the youth space, and a lot of people know that Sutherland region is just a massive, massive market for participation and youth football. So
Well, it's the biggest association in Australian hemisphere is the Sutherland Shire Association. They've got the most registered players.
There you go. So, for them to be flirting with relegation, so to speak, for such a big club in a big catchment, probably not ideally where they want to be. But look, they're 4 points clear of that second last spot at this stage. And still obviously a little bit of work to do because everyone around them is going to start thinking the same thing.
100%. Looking at, did we say the table? Well, we did. We just quickly say Rockdale on 46 points. Second, Marconi 43. Spirit third on 40. Apia fourth on 39. Blacktown City fifth on 36. And Sydney United close off that top six on 33 points. And like we said, the bottom two spots at the moment are held with Central Coast on 10 and Mount Druitt on 12. Looking at some of the games coming up this week, we've got Manly taking on St George on Friday night. So important game for Manly to see if they can bounce back. A huge game for the top six, this one. Sydney Olympic taking on Blacktown City. So that's going to be a huge game there. Western Sydney Wanderers Youth are taking on Wollongong Wolves. Another huge game down the bottom. Central Coast taking on Mount Druitt. So that's a 6-pointer there. Marconi taking on Sydney FC Youth. They're going to need a bounce back. Rockdale, you should say, should take the chocolates again against Sutherland Sharks. You've got St George taking on Apia and Sydney United in a big game as well. When you look at the top six, Sydney United taking on Spirit. So, mate, there's some big games stand out for the top six, top two, and also for that bottom place coming up this week. Huge round coming up.
Oh, massive, Chubbs. Yeah. I'm actually trying to work out how I can try to manage to be, depending on my daughter's game at the Marconi Sydney FC game on Sunday. So it's going to be a huge round. It always is, and that's like I said, mate. Yeah. Anyone can beat anyone on the day, so it's always something to look forward to, these NPL fixtures.
In my league, the big move is there. Northern Tigers, we know, are leading the comp now on 39 points. Second, we've got the Bulls Academy after their loss on 38. Well, the big four from Grace has been the SD Raiders. As you know, your club that you follow closely too, Andy, on 35 points. We had Goran on. And unfortunately, they're paying a huge price. I spoke even to former technical director there, Nicky Carl, today. And unfortunately, they're paying a heavy burden for how well they went in the cup competitions. And it has sort of triggered and brought them a little bit of a stumbling block in the competition, losing 4 out of the last 6 games with a draw. So, I mean, they're still in a good position with 10 games to go, but I think they'll be a little bit disappointed because they were like 5-6 points ahead, and now to be sitting 4 points away from automatic promotion spot with the Northern Tigers, which I feel the Raiders have a much better team. That's just my personal view. It'd be pretty disappointing.
So,
Yeah, it'd be pretty disappointing, Andy.
Oh, well, Chubbs, you mentioned it earlier with your club, Dully. You know, you go through a few injuries and a few, players missing here and there, and add Cups competition to that. Add the Cups competition like SD Raiders have had, and that's obviously been. I think we mentioned it last week as well. That's sort of been, unfortunately, what their downfall is. I'm interested to get your
I mean, Gary Van Engman we had on, and he's really improved Hills United, who was struggling. That's another win for them. They've had another massive win, 1-0 as well. So Van Engman has really, the new coach has settling in now. He's done a good job at Hills to get them back, away. We had a hard fought, we took 6 debutants, 20s. Like you said, we've been waiting for this window to open. We had back-to-back wins, but going up to Newcastle Jets, which I've got to say, they've got some terrific young boys coming through that academy side. Wow, some of their boys were really good. I mean, 3-0, I was proud of my young boys, like we said, but yeah, Newcastle Jets were very strong. And, they're another team. They're on 34 points. And if you think they had 3 points deducted off them, with everything that happened, they could have been sitting 2 points behind the Tigers and Bulls Academy, because I feel the Jets are another team that with the Bulls Academy should be the teams really in that top 2 spots.
Yeah, no, it's unbelievable, Chubbs. I mean, at the end of the day, you've got so many clubs fighting for that. I mean, look how close 4th, 5th, 6th are. I mean, even you got to include Rotherham, 7th and 8th.
Or even Blacktown Spartans with 10 games to go. Realistically, you're going to run even on 33 points, 6 points. Like anyone can still jag that, that automatic promotion spot to the Premier League.
100%, and even that second spot, is huge, as you know.
100%. I mean, in the bottom half, you see you got Bankstown City 23, us 21, MacArthur 19. Mounties are in that spot where you don't want to be in that playoff 18. And like we said, the club that's fallen off grace, despite I'm hearing they're going to spend big. So we'll see what players they actually bring in tomorrow. But 12 points for Bonnyrigg is
just the window open for Chubbs
tomorrow. I think 7 days, 10 days, something like that it's open for. But it's open from tomorrow. A club like Bonnyrigg sitting where they are, it's starting to get a little bit scary because they're 7 points away to be out of that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and we spoke about it at length last week. I don't think we're gonna sort of mention it too much this week, but an absolute fall from grace if they were to be relegated again to NPL 2.
All right, Andy, can we get an update on what's happening with the World Club competitions? We discussed that.
Can I just?
Oh, you got anything else you want to add?
Just a few more movements on the local scene, and I'm actually interested to hear about your conversation with Nicky Carl. As you know, he's now the second week in charge at Marconi Youth.
So he all goes well. He'll be on the show next week. As we know, He's done a terrific job with SD Raiders. Now as the technical director at Marconi. He said to me, look, his biggest task and his biggest hurdle at the moment is to keep Marconi Youth up. Survival, that's what it's all about. But yeah, he's got a few things to say, and it's going to be interesting to get his view because we know what a great job he done at SD Raiders, and what kind of approach and what he's got, what's going to happen at Club Marconi.
Yeah, it's a massive job. I can tell you, I was at the weekend fixtures, Chubbs up the road, they played the Bulls Academy and MacArthur Bulls Academy in the round over the weekend. And I can tell you there's actually been some movement in MacArthur Bulls Academy as well at the boys youth level with their TD. Their TD parting ways, and as well 2 other coaches have followed him. And I'm hearing the gentleman that they brought in, his name is Shaf Sogol, as a new to the Bulls Youth Academy. And they've, I understand he's the UEFA license job, so really, really big raps. Music to my ears. He's a big believer in development of players. Already in the first week in charge over the weekend, he promoted a lot of players. I understand 6 boys got promoted up to the 20s from the 18s. So, Yeah, doing big things. I think he actually spent quite a few years at Wanderers, I understand, and nurtured the players the likes of Marcus Eunice and Eamon Galusi. So yeah, it comes with big raps. Speaking to some parents there over the weekend, really excited of what the new TD has brought in already, and yeah, there was some fantastic football as you normally expect up the road at the NPL level, Chubbs, when
Yep.
you go out and watch some great goals that were scored. But yeah, just quickly wanted to bring up the NPL Youth Club Championship, and Sydney FC actually flying on top of there, but down towards the bottom. You got some big clubs. Newcastle Jets are actually last on club championship. Sydney
I
United
was
are along
thinking the other day, I travelled there, two and a
where?
half hours to get to Lake Macquarie on the
Oh,
weekends again.
yep,
And I'm
Newcastle.
thinking, even for the youth, how hard it's difficult to travel to Sydney every second week.
100%. Yeah, yeah, but it's a big thing.
And you've got
But
younger players, 14, 15 years old. It's not an easy task. And for the parents that do it, congratulations to them. But
oh, well,
it's a huge
my,
job.
my, my daughter's there in 2 weeks, Chubbs. We've got Newcastle coming up. So we're contemplating whether to do an overnight stay or whether to drive up in the morning.
Yeah,
It's one of those things, mate, as you know, being involved at that level. So, but yeah, no, it's really exciting. A lot of things going on, but there's a lot of clubs down in that boys' youth NPL 1 that are looking over their shoulders. Clubs like, as I said, Marconi Hills. You've Northern Tigers and Hills aren't too far. They're only 6 points ahead of Newcastle Jets in club championship, as are Central Coast Mariners. So a lot of big clubs down towards the bottom of that club championship, Chubbs, which obviously means relegation to NPL 2.
yeah, 100%. So we'll be following that closely.